It's good to have you with us for France 24 special coverage of the Indian election. I'm Delano D'Souza and you're watching India Votes. Now, over the past few years, India has witnessed a boost in internet access. It's led to the increased use of social networks and messaging apps. According to a study done by Oxford University, 52% of the respondents said they got their news through WhatsApp and Facebook. It's led to political parties using such platforms to spread misinformation. France 24 correspondents on the ground filed this report.
Election rallies draw big crowds in India. But it's the internet and social media that are the real weapons in the hands of political parties. Shivam used to work for the ruling BJP party's IT cell before he resigned to go work for the opposition. In his 2 years with the BJP, he collected data from millions of Indians for the Hindu Nationalist Party.
This data was also used for the creation of WhatsApp groups and for targeted messaging, which also often included fake news.
With over 230 million users in India, WhatsApp is a goldmine for parties. The dissemination of fake news through personalized or private messages is all too easy.
If a politician had to give an election speech, they would have to stick to facts somewhat. They couldn't outright lie to the public because the media was there to fact check them. This is something that doesn't happen over WhatsApp groups. The voter is being manipulated emotionally to vote in a certain direction, and that is harmful for democracy.
Doctored images and videos taken out of context are often used to attack the credibility of candidates.
Several people, in fact, on social media posted a video where people can be seen cheering for Rahul Gandhi holding his poster along with green flags. Now, they claim that these were Pakistani flags. In fact, they are the flag of the Indian Union Muslim League.
The clip stayed long enough to provoke anger. The phenomenon is so widespread that some media organizations are investing in tracking and busting fake news.
How many fake news posts have we been able to bust today?
Today we bust around 4 stories.
Okay. Social media has allowed influential people to have direct access to hundreds and thousands of people. The bad part of it is that there is no moderation and filtration of the kind of information that is going out over there, which is why we need to educate and inform the people who are maybe getting access to internet now.
For the moment, parties are spending heavily on communication through social networks. Since February, the BJP has spent nearly €500,000 on Facebook alone.
Now, to talk more about India today and the climate in which these elections are taking place in, we can bring in Christophe Jaffrelot, Research Fellow at the Center for International Studies, or CERI, at Sciences Po here in Paris. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Now, earlier this year, there was a terror attack which took place on Indian soldiers over in Kashmir. That incident shifted the strategy for the Prime Minister Narendra Modi during this election campaign. Has it worked?
Well, it has somewhat worked, at least in the following weeks. It did work. We saw security becoming the number one item and issue. But of course, you know, this kind of emotional issue fades away in the course of time, and people are back to the daily life. And in the daily life, jobs, access to electricity, access to water, are back in the front of their preoccupations. So today, probably this is not such a winning card as we anticipated.
Okay. Now, because, you know, when Prime Minister Modi came to power back in 2014, the international community said, okay, we'll give him a second chance because this is the man who can reform India's economy. That has not happened.
It has not happened.
So he's not talking about the economy because of that?
Well, because of that and because, well, all the economic indicators are in the red. Jobs have not been created. Investment is not there. The peasantry is in a very deep crisis. And the banks are also in a very deep crisis. So wherever you look at, you don't see any achievement on the economic front. So it's not only that there was no reform, there was no sustained development in any of these directions. That's why he has replaced development by security as his main motto, and that may not be sufficient. That may not be enough.
I don't know if you've had the chance to read an article in Time magazine by Ian Bremmer, where he said Modi needs a second term in office to, you know, to complete all the reforms he has pledged to do.
Yeah, he should initiate the reforms first, because in 5 years we've
seen... Ian Bremmer's talking...
Well, you know, so many are speaking their mind. But if you look at the fact, if you look at the real achievements and real reforms, you're left with only one, the GST.
Which was a brainchild of the previous administration.
Exactly. It was something the UPA government wanted to implement, and the BJP opposed it, including Narendra Modi as Chief Minister of Gujarat. No, the problem is that it is not so much market-friendly as business-friendly. It's not market-oriented. And for the reformers, for the reformists at least, this is what matters.
Now, I want to talk about the BJP itself because they have fielded a candidate, Pragya Singh Thakur, as a candidate in this election. She's out on bail on terror-related charges. What does normalizing this sort of thing say about the party?
Well, it's very interesting because fringe elements, people who were really at the periphery of the BJP, have become mainstream in some ways. Interestingly, this is not something everybody is happy with within the BJP. Yesterday, she said Nathuram Godse, the murderer of Mahatma Gandhi, is a patriot, and BJP leaders could not swallow that so easily, so they have objected that, no, that is her views, not our views. So you see some tension within the party, a reflection of this polarization, and the party may have a tough time to remain united in case of any setback.
Now, over the past few years, we have seen this increase in Hindu nationalism over in India. It's out on full display. Do you get a sense that world leaders are willing to turn a blind eye to all of this because India is a huge economy, it has a middle class that is growing, and then we're talking about trade and stuff?
That's one reason, obviously. Another reason is that there are many national populists at the helm of many countries today. So what can Mr. Trump, Mr. Netanyahu, Mr. Orban, name one country, Erdogan, the list of countries led by similar leaders is longer and longer every year. So this is another reason why you don't see any international critique. The main critiques come from the UN, multilateral institutions.
Indeed, because we did have, when President Macron was in India last year, he never really mentioned the word secularism. Now, I want to ask you about the Congress Party because, Rahul Gandhi has framed this election as a choice, either between the ideology of the RSS, one of division, and one of India as a Hindu country, or one of unity. If the Congress and its allies succeed and, kick Prime Minister Narendra Modi out of a job, how can you put this nationalism away, which has been there for the past few years now? That's
very challenging. And that's why Rahul Gandhi is visiting so many Hindu temples. He is also saying that he is a Paka Brahmin, full Indian and Hindu to some extent. It is showing that tactically, at least, you need to tell your majority community that you're part of the mainstream, part of the largest group in the society. Strategically, they may not behave the same way because if Congress succeeds, it will be largely because of the minority's votes. And you can't ignore your voters to that extent. So tactically, they have to be good Hindus. Practically, they have at least to give them some security, some recognition, something that is now disappearing.
You know India well. You've traveled to the country. In your gut, can you sense what's going to happen next week?
What's going to happen for sure is not a repeat of 2014. That said, will it be a coalition led by BJP or led by Congress? It's really difficult to say. And this is why this last week of campaigning is so violent, so tense. It's really a finish of a different kind. We had never seen this kind of finish in the past 30 years. I'm going to India for 30 years covering elections. And what happened to Kolkata yesterday and the day before showed that it's certainly one of the most complicated election campaign for many players in the field.
Christophe Jaffalo, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now it's time to hear directly from a voter next, thanks to our team at the France 24 Observers. India generates 62 million tons of garbage every single year. Rapid urbanization and population growth have pushed the country to the brink. Landfills, they're overflowing. Mountains of food, bottles and packaging pile up in the streets and along the country's beaches. Narendra Modi's plan to clean up India includes a campaign to turn waste into electricity, but it's still a long way from becoming becoming a reality. Sangeeta Singh Negi is our observer this week. She's an environmentalist and wellness influencer in the city of Ahmedabad. 2 years ago, she biked more than 1,000 kilometers across the country to raise awareness about household waste management. Sangeeta tells us about the need for concrete action from the government on the environment. Take a listen.
We want a visionary government, a stable government who can give us good results and who can implement all the existing policies. There is gap between fund utilized and assigned under different schemes. What we hope is that whosoever come for next 5 years use these funds in the existing schemes properly. I'm an environmentalist, so my attention goes more on environmental issues, like we would like to see more green cover, whatever natural resources we have, conserve them, safety of women, and garbage is a big problem in my country, so we want a proper implementation of the policies for that. I hope our elected government for next 5 years will make our country cleaner, greener, safer and plastic free.
That's it for this edition of India Votes. Join us for a special show which we'll be bringing to you from New Delhi next Thursday. That's at 4:30 p.m. Paris time, 8 p.m. in India. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.